This show is presented by 2 Pound Sports and Entertainment. All right, boxing fans, and now from the Clackamas Armory right here in Portland, Oregon, are you ready for some action-packed action?
Welcome to 2 Pound Sports and Entertainment's Fight Night 3 in Portland, Oregon. I'm Patrick Connor.
I'm Karen A. Tate.
And we're here for 2 Pound Sports and Entertainment's Fight Night 3. That's right, this is the third one, and tonight, Steve 2 Pound Forbes is making his comeback. 4 years out of the ring, that's the main event tonight, and Victor Morales Jr. also making his way in.
Yeah, we've got 5 great fights on the card tonight. We've got everything weight-wise from featherweight all the way up to super welterweight, and all the fights should be really exciting.
You know, we have a couple of 4-rounders to start us out here, but then, like I said, Steve 2 Pound Forbes in a 7-round main event, and then right before that, Victor Morales Jr. in an 8-rounder. We are going to have a lot of fun tonight here at the Clackamas Armory.
Yeah, we've got a lot of local talent and some standout amateurs making their pro debuts, and a couple of them just a couple fights into their pro careers, so it should be really great to see them develop tonight.
I agree, Karen. This is a very important night here for Portland and for the Pacific Northwest, and I can't wait till we get underway.
This show is presented by 2 Pound Sports and Entertainment.
All business, though, is Steve Forbes as he glares at Tavorus Teague walking past him in the ring.
Yeah, he's not a nice guy in the ring.
Might have only been 2 pounds when he was born, but he will put every ounce of those 2 pounds in against you when he gets in the ring against you. Like I said, I've seen it. I saw it at McConnell's Boxing Academy against Lorenzo Caldera, against a number of fighters. Steve Forbes is serious about this quote-unquote comeback here.
Absolutely. He's experienced enough to know it doesn't matter who you're in with or how long you've been in the gym or how sharp you feel. It's a serious fight. You're in the boxing ring. It's serious.
All right, boxing fans, once again, this is your main event of 2 Pound Sports and Entertainment Fight Night Redemption 3. This bout scheduled for 7 rounds of boxing in the super welterweight division. Introducing first, representing J.C. Lamas and boxing out of the blue corner. He wears the blue trunks trimmed in white. He holds a professional record of 6 wins with 24 losses, 4 draws. 3 of his wins came by way of knockout. He stands 5 feet 10 inches tall and weighed in at 155.8 pounds. Fighting out of Bakersfield, California, introducing Tavorus Swifty Teague. And now, introducing his opponent, representing the Pacific Northwest and Portland, Oregon, boxing out of the red corner. He wears the red trunks, trimmed in white and gold. He holds a professional record of 30 wins with only 14 losses. 11 of his wins came by way of knockout. He stands 5 feet 7 and 1/2 inches tall and weighed in at 159.2 pounds. He is making his return to the ring after a 4.5-year retirement. He is a former IBF Super Featherweight Champion and a former USBA Super Featherweight Champion. He has stood toe-to-toe and boxed with names like Jesse Vargas, Andre Berto, and Oscar De La Hoya. Making his return to the ring, presenting Steve 2 Pound Forbes.
Hey, Steve, go for him! Okay, man. We've been over over the rules in the dressing room, I remind you to listen and follow my commands and protect yourself at all times. Touch gloves now. Good luck.
Your referee, Joel Scobie.
Just got the referee's instructions there. We're going to be seeing Steve 2 Pound Forbes in action as a professional for the first time in over 4 years. Now, again, Tavorus Teague coming in with a record of 6-25-4. He has been stopped before, needless to say, but Steve Forbes has not scored a stoppage win since 2010. So we'll have to see how serious he is about this fight tonight here.
Yeah, and I would say, Steve Forbes, he's a great fighter, phenomenal fundamentals. He tends to use sort of a James Toney-like defense on the inside. He doesn't do a lot of movement with his feet necessarily, but Teague is kind of pushing that right now. But, that's not really Forbes' game, the knockout. If it comes, it comes, but he's more about, it's boxing. The game is boxing, and he's a master of that craft.
When I spoke to Steve in the lead up to this fight, he said that his usual style when he was a pro, when he was a little bit younger, was that he would often move in, get inside, work inside, and use head movement and whatnot to really make things work, because he's never been a fighter who has a lot of punching power. But he says that as he's gotten older, as things have progressed, he's had to learn how to do things a little bit differently, which he says he's actually a little bit more mobile, believe it or not, as a fighter now than he used to be, because he has to be.
Yeah, and so far that seems to be true. He's moving his feet a bit more than he used to. And some of that, I think Teague is creating that need. He's moving around the ring, and right now Teague is fighting smartly. He's 31 to Forbes 42, and he's kind of trying to utilize that movement and show that he's a younger fighter.
Definitely approaching this first round like the quintessential spoiler, as it were, in the sense that he's not really doing anything predictable, kind of moving forward, moving backward, left, right, very unpredictably, not with any discernible pattern. And Steve Forbes, thus far in round one, is actually having a bit of a tough time catching him clean.
Yeah, and I kind of wish the referee hadn't broken them up right there. They both had an arm free, and I think Steve needs to get on the inside there. He's the shorter man, shorter arms. He needs to get on the inside of Teague's arms, and I think the referee kind of hurt him a little bit there.
We'll have to see whether or not this referee is going to be a little bit over official, as it were, in terms of breaking them. But thus far, Tavorus Teague doing what he has to do. And again, as I said from the outset, Tavorus Teague, a surprising amount of skill when you look at his, based on his record. He does throw a pretty good jab. He has a decent right hand, but it's not even so much about the technique as it is about his feel. He moves around very well and knows how to kind of stymie you.
Forbes, no doubt, shaking off a bit of ring rust there in that first round. And yeah.
You could even see visibly Forbes walking back to his corner, kind of shaking his arms out as if he realizes he needs to get a little loose.
Yeah.
But
4.5 years out of the ring is no small thing.
Well, and just looking at Steve Forbes in his corner, he actually looks a little bit dry. He does not look particularly sweaty, whereas Tavorus Teague he's standing up, got his arms up, he looks loose. So, I mean, that's something. That's, of course, it can change from round to round, but being fair to Tavorus Teague, who was not necessarily brought in here to win, he came to win.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think he saw an opportunity here. And, him standing up in the corner like that, I don't know if he normally does that, but it might be a bit of mind games, too, that they're trying to play with Steve in his corner, but we'll see.
Again, looking relatively dry is Steve Forbes here compared to Tavorus Teague. But he's scooching in there, and he seems to understand here early in round two that he's going to have to line something up to stop Tavorus Teague from moving like this.
Yeah, I think Forbes is shortening that distance a little bit more, finding some success with some of those hooks to the body, and moving in with his jab nicely.
It appears as though Forbes has kind of moved past what looked like maybe jitters in the opening first round, and he's settled down a little bit. Looks a little more comfortable now. Although he's always looked like a comfortable fighter. He's never really been a particularly excitable fighter.
Yeah, he's got that kind of classic flat code style he always has, and part of that is, being very cool-headed and taking things as they come, and yeah, he's the epitome of that.
Very subtle move there from Steve Forbes. He was looking down at Tavorus Teague's stomach, and then threw a left hook upstairs that was maybe about a half-inch short. Might have even clipped him barely. But those are the kind of veteran moves that you can expect from a guy like Steve Forbes, who held the IBF Super Featherweight title from, I believe it was 98 to 2000.
Absolutely. He's got such a great IQ in the ring, and that's definitely perhaps his biggest strength over Teague here, aside from the experience. But yeah, and you can see, I can promise you, Forbes is looking at Teague and thinking about, traps that he might be able to set and things like that, thinking forward. He's not just reacting to what Teague is doing.
With Teague's wider punches, you can already see that Forbes is looking to punch inside of those shots, even with his hooks, those wider punches.
Yeah.
Teague is just going a little bit too wide, a little bit too cuffing.
Yeah.
And Forbes is just tighter with his approach.
Yeah, and that's those solid fundamentals that he's always shown. And Teague, as the taller, longer fighter, he should be throwing straighter punches, trying to keep Steve on the outside, as he's been doing that, but he's throwing those looping punches. It's not helping his case. It's allowing Steve to kind of get between those shots and come on the inside. And yeah, Steve landing a lot more clean shots here.
And speaking of the contender, I gotta say, Tavorus Teague actually gives me a bit of a Cornelius Bunderidge vibe to him,
Yeah, he does have a similar style. Yeah, Forbes definitely looking more loose in that round. Looks like he's kind of feeling more comfortable shaking off some of that ring rust.
And Tavorus Teague actually took a number of those shots a bit more flush in round two, and he looked as if he recognized that he took more shots in round two as well. Here in the replay, we have Tavorus Teague leaning down quite a bit, but Steve Forbes landing a left hook to the body, trying to get cagey in there.
Yeah, and I would say, it seemed to me anyway that Forbes landed the cleaner punches in that round. Even though Teague was busy, a lot of those punches weren't terribly clean or missed just a hair. And yeah, Forbes, it feels to me like he's coming on and kind of figuring Teague out.
Steve's doing a great job of rolling with a lot of those shots, taking the mustard out of a lot of them, either with just kind of a quick little scrunch of his body or moving his glove ever so slightly, rolling his head. Again, veteran moves, and that's what we're seeing. They're difficult to see because they're not dramatic. Mm-hmm. They're not nearly as dramatic as a big puncher, Karen. But
exactly. They're subtle movements, and we can also point out, he trained with the Mayweathers out of Vegas for many years, Roger Mayweather and Floyd Mayweather Sr., who, of course, trained Floyd Mayweather Jr., and you'll see a lot of those tactics in Steve's style, the shoulder rolling. And the benefit of that sort of thing is, like we were mentioning earlier, he doesn't have to move his feet a lot to get out of harm's way.
He seems to be catching up quite a bit with his feet, too. Whereas in the first round and a half or so, he was having difficulty staying with Tavorus Teague and his weird movement. Steve Forbes is caught up and is cutting off the ring much better here in round three. And not wasting much energy either by hopping after Teague or anything like that, but rather just kind of taking things as they come.
Mm-hmm. Takes his time. And you can really see, again, the experience difference in just subtle little things that both of these fighters are doing. But, you know, Forbes has all that veteran experience and championship level experience. And, you know, he's mentally aware of what's about to come, what might come. And like I mentioned earlier, kind of setting traps. And I think Teague, he started off well, but I think some of what he does, he's not quite sure why it might work. And I think that's a difference we're seeing here between the two.
About halfway through round 3, and the pace has slowed a tiny bit, and at least in terms of them landing effective punches. But Steve Forbes, again, seems to have figured out that he's going to have to walk down Teague a little bit, and that he's going to have to make something happen himself, that Teague's not going to give him a whole lot.
Yeah, historically, you know, Forbes was a bit more of a counter puncher, and fighters generally came to him as the aggressor, and he's kind of having to switch that up tonight. But as you can see, you know, he has the fundamentals to do that.
Teague leaning in, not doing himself any favors because he's getting zero extension on his punches by doing that.
And it's right in where Forbes is comfortable, there on the inside.
Right where he wants to be.
Yeah.
And another thing about this position for Forbes, not to sing his praises too hard here, but another thing about this position and about this range for him is he doesn't have to do anything with his punches in terms of effort. He can basically just move his arms and land, and those score punches.
Those are scoring.
Or score points.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that inside rough kind of fight is right up Steve Forbes' alley. So yeah, if Teague wants to get a leg up again, he's got to keep him on the outside.
Now, a quick reminder, Karen. This is a 7-round fight, not an 8-round fight, not a 10-round fight. So we have to be very careful if we're in Steve Forbes' corner about dropping any rounds earlier on or having any sort of ring rust. Now, here on this replay, there's Steve Forbes landing a nice right uppercut as, again, Teague kind of just leans in and mauls.
I think, you know, Teague might be kind of trying to lay on Forbes and make him tired, but I think Forbes is definitely getting the better of those types of exchanges there.
Almost appears as if Teague's looking to get some extra credit for all those tattoos. And also notable that maybe Steve Forbes is the only person in Portland who does not have a tattoo that we know of. It's a good right hand to the body opening round 4 for Tavorus Teague. Didn't really seem like it affected Steve Forbes at all. Referee's actually having a difficult time getting out of Tavorus Teague's way. He's so jumpy.
Teague is, you know, he's trying to get back to, you know, like the round 1 where he was able to move a lot and keep Forbes on the outside. But unlike round 1, Teague isn't throwing enough here to really be winning the round.
Yeah,
it's not so far.
In round 1, he kind of had that two-pronged approach of volume and awkwardness, and now he's kind of just got the awkwardness.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, a lot of what he is throwing so far, it's not really landing. It's landing on the arms or things like that, so they're not scoring punches.
It does beg the question, though, Karen, because even... Oh, here's Steve Forbes moving in on Tavorus Teague, who does not look very comfortable getting hit over in Forbes' corner.
He doesn't want the inside work, and Forbes knows it.
Nice shot with the left hook downstairs from Forbes, right as Teague wasn't expecting it. Those are the kinds of shots that break ribs.
Absolutely. Yeah, and he's hurt to the body, it looks to me like his right arm is he's holding it close to his rib cage, trying to protect it. Really nice to see some quality inside fighting here from Forbes.
Along with body work, a lost art in boxing today.
Absolutely.
And here's Steve Forbes catching Tavorus Teague, who's trying to kind of roll his way into a brawl, but just not getting the better of it at all.
I think like a lot of modern fighters, Teague, isn't quite sure what to do there on the inside, and Forbes is taking advantage of it. He's back in there. He's rolling with those punches really well that Teague is throwing and landing his own very clean. Really good work by Forbes. Wow, that was good. Yeah, I think Forbes is really comfortable at this point. He's feeling good.
He appears to be dialing it in the last half minute or so of this fourth round. And Tavorus Teague trying to make something happen by leaping forward, but just not really able to land anything clean. Now, it begs the question, and it's a very fair question, since nothing happening is very dramatic or clean to the point where it's extremely obvious. One of the things that Steve Forbes has had issues with in his career is losing fights by decision that he probably shouldn't have lost because he's not able to really bring that drama to his style. So, again, begs the question, how are these judges seeing this fight, Karen?
Well, that's a great question, but, that's actually kind of a peeve of mine. Especially inside fighting, like we were talking about, that's something of a lost art these days, and I think a lot of judges aren't used to seeing it either. And you have to have a sharp eye. You have to be paying very close attention to be seeing which punches land, which don't.
A lot of subtleties.
And but to be fair, that's the judge's job. You're being paid to sit there and focus on that fight and count which punches are landing, which ones are clean, which ones are not, which ones are more meaningful, etc. So that's their job, and I hope that they're seeing that clearly tonight.
Well, hopefully they're seeing this clearly. On this replay, Steve Forbes is able to counter, if not particularly hard or heavily.
Absolutely, and to go back to the point about his style and some questionable decisions, the scoring criteria and judging are very clear, and it's about clean punches landed as the number one criteria. Shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter, if it's a knockout punch necessarily. That can play in, obviously, if you're, gauging the quality of punches. But by and large, if like in this situation, Forbes is landing many clean punches and Teague is not. Even though they're on the inside, they're to the body, they're more subtle. That's what matters, and the judges should be counting those. They should be giving him credit for those. So hopefully that's what's happening.
Tavorus Teague not really moving with much urgency in round 5, and he's not a big knockout puncher. Would moving with urgency really help the situation? Perhaps not. But again, like we talked about in round 1, he did fairly well with just volume, and he's kind of lost that here. Yeah,
I think Forbes has worn him down a bit. He might be a little bit tired, but definitely the body work and all, I think, has worn Teague down a little bit. I don't think he's able to throw with that much volume and move, so he's choosing to move.
We're seeing in short bursts why when Steve Forbes is at McConnell's Boxing Academy over in Portland here, when he starts talking, people shut up and they listen because he knows a lot about boxing, and he's showing that here.
Yeah, I mean, I would say we're seeing two different levels of IQ and experience play out here very clearly.
Now, Steve Forbes had a more discernible punching power. This could definitely be a very different fight.
Could. And, it should be noted that, Forbes started out his career at 130 pounds. He's only been above welterweight once, I believe, before tonight, and that was against Oscar De La Hoya at 150 pounds. So he's always been at his best, at the lower weights, and there's something there, that might affect his punching power and that sort of thing. But again, this is not a street fight. This is boxing. So it's about, number of clean landed punches. It's about the art of boxing and, as they say, the sweet science. And Forbes he's delivering on that front tonight so far.
Fair to also mention that he popped Oscar De La Hoya's eye socket too, so it wasn't like he had gotten his rear end kicked in that fight.
No, not at all. It's a very competitive fight, actually. Yeah, Teague, it looks to me like, when he throws, he's kind of, it's almost sort of a stay off me type flurry, whereas Forbes is, Forbes got nailed with a nice right hand there by Teague. But
That looks like
he's okay.
he got hit with a shot he didn't quite see coming right at the end of the round there, and rocked his head back, but he's sitting in his corner and looks to be kind of just taking it in stride. We'll have to see what comes of that in the next round, though.
I didn't see any change to his legs, so I think he took it okay, but yeah, we'll see. Yeah, Teague, it looks to me like he's not quite sure what else to do, so he's fighting in spurts. We'll see a replay here. There's that right hand that rocked Forbes a bit, but smartly, another veteran move. He hung on just for a couple seconds, just to make sure he was okay, and smart.
Yeah, from my vantage point, in real time, it looked almost as if Forbes' right leg stutter stepped a little bit, but looking on that replay, he looked okay. It looked like it was just kind of a half uppercut type of shot that caught him that he didn't see. But that's also the danger of doing well in a fight, and that's kind of, again, bring up this word, the paradox of boxing, that you have to entertain, you have to look to win, but you can't look to win too hard.
Yeah, you can't get careless. And, like we were talking about in the earlier fights on this card with these young fighters coming up, and sometimes people get impatient, want to see knockouts, but I applaud them for, taking their time and being smart in there. You don't want to get careless and get caught with something you don't see. Could totally, turn your career around. So
Forbes kind of flurrying a little bit here in the start of the 6th round. Not really landing much clean. Not yet, but Tavorus Teague also, like you said, he's kind of throwing punches as if to say, leave me alone.
Yeah, stay off me punches. Forbes are much more, they have more intent to them, I'd say. Yeah, it seems to me Teague's work rate is up a little bit in this round, which is smart by him.
I suppose it's a possibility that Steve went to his corner thinking about that right hand that he got hit with, and is now being a little bit more careful with his offense. But that being said, again, the paradox here is that he's going to have to figure out something to do offensively to win the fight. Nice right hand from Steve Forbes as Teague was kind of in the middle of a sloppy flurry.
Get your eyes on him, Teague. You can't see him in there. Teague, you can't see him.
Coach Molly McConnell yelling for Steve Forbes to go over the top with the right hand. What he really should be looking to do is to pick his head up with the left uppercut, then go over the top with the right hand, because Teague's leaning his head in perfectly for that.
Great, beautiful.
Devolving a little bit here in round 6 into a tussle, kind of a octopus-armed struggle.
I think they're both a little tired, a little bit more leaning by both of them. Just trying to, gain an advantage where they can. But yeah, I still see, this is a pretty close round, but Forbes may be landing the more meaningful punches. But yeah, that volume by Teague is a problem for Forbes.
Well, these are the kinds of rounds where I would, if I were in Steve Forbes' corner, worry about what the judges are seeing, where, he's not really putting forth the effort in terms of the volume to counter what Teague's doing, even though he's not landing that much.
Yeah, the punches, I would say the clean punches landed in this round are fairly close, which can be, like you say, a problem on the judges' scorecards.
I suppose it's possible that Forbes is just looking to save his energy for this 7th and final round, but
could be.
Can't afford to give too many away in a 7-round fight.
No, definitely not. And yeah, it's nice to see, though, from both fighters to talk a little bit about their technique. They're both dogs, they're in there to fight. They don't mind it getting a little rough. And Forbes, certainly we've seen that throughout his career, and it's nice to see him back to that. But Teague as well, he's tussling a little bit. He doesn't mind it getting a little bit rough in there.
You can see, actually, that was a good exchange. Teague landed 2 shots, and Forbes came back with a sweeping right hand that kind of turned Teague's head.
Snapped his head around a little bit.
fell into a clinch, but here's Steve Forbes with another flurry. Again, some of this work is sloppy with guys just kind of locking up and having difficulty finding clean shots. We're going into the 7th and final round here. I'm predicting that Steve Forbes, ever the competitor, is not going to go quietly into that good night. Show respect before the final round. Steve Forbes didn't even really look like he was interested, to be honest. He looks like he wants to get to work.
There's that dog coming out again.
Teague, I'm not sure has thrown a single punch yet, but yeah, Steve Forbes hasn't really done much himself either.
Teague is more interested, I think, in staying at arm's length.
Forbes looking to carefully walk Teague down as Teague kind of runs into the referee there. And a good jab from Forbes in the last round. He's landed several of them, while Teague hasn't landed much of anything at all.
Yeah, and that jab is critical. He's the shorter man, shorter arms. Teague is moving a lot, so it's good to see Forbes, using that jab and working his way in. Another really nice one there. Deceptively hard, I think. It surprised Teague.
Well, Teague just hasn't been able to put anything. Yeah, he timed that nicely and had the distance down. Teague just hasn't really been able to do anything offensively yet.
No. I don't know if he's just looking to survive this last round or if he's saving up for something towards the end and try to steal it. I don't know. But yeah, Forbes is not a fighter I would wait around on.
Keep that chin down.
Well, there are a lot of gaps in terms of the action, and the only one really filling them, at least consistently, is Forbes.
Absolutely. You can't win a round if you're not throwing punches.
We're in the final minute of the 7th and final round between Steve Forbes and Tavorus Teague. Tavorus Teague has just kind of played it safe in this last round. Steve Forbes, while not particularly active himself, is obviously the more active of the two and is the only one looking to win this round.
Absolutely, yeah. He's doing what he's supposed to do. He's landing clean punches. He's doing the best he can with what Teague is giving him, I think. And it's hard, too, to land punches on a guy who's moving like this and not throwing.
Very fair point, that you're kind of only able to take what your opponent has given you, and when you move your hands and throw punches, that's more opportunities for your opponent to hit you. And that being said, Steve Forbes closing out the 7th round, the last 10 seconds here, kind of grappling with Tavorus Teague, but
Teague is also on the inside there throwing some kidney punches that I think the referee didn't see.
They end the fight smacking the heck out of each other. Steve Forbes completes his first professional fight in over 4 years. Tavorus Teague makes his way through 7 rounds. We're going to have to see what these judges saw.
Yeah, for me, I have a replay here. The end. Again, really nice jabbing on his way in by Forbes there. Touched him with a right hand on the way out.
See Tavorus Teague trying to dirty the fight up a little bit, score points that way, but
he's not landing much, not much clean. And Forbes is getting the better of that. There were a couple close rounds in that fight, but I felt by and large, Forbes did the better work, landed the cleaner punches, landed more punches in most of the rounds. But to your point earlier, Patrick, you have to be paying good attention to see a lot of that, especially on the inside. But hopefully we have judges here who know what they're looking at.
There are different kinds of confidence and courage in boxing. There's, of course, the confidence and courage that comes from going down and getting back up. That's probably the most common that people talk about. But, something that's far less talked about, less heralded in terms of confidence and in terms of, putting it all on the line is a guy like Steve Forbes coming for the first time in over 4 years, fighting as a professional for the first time in over 4 years, and taking on a fighter who has spoiler written all over him. You know, this was not an easy matchup for Steve Forbes in the sense that he was not given a guy that was just going to walk to him all night. He was not given a guy who was going to give him everything he wanted, and he still took the fight.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, you know, for a 4.5-year layoff, this was actually a somewhat tough fight, like you say. The other thing, Teague, you know, he's only been a pro for 5 years, and he has 35 fights. That's he's a very, very active fighter, and that can be dangerous to an inactive fighter.
He's definitely the kind of fighter who has all sorts of cities and stickers all over his suitcase, needless to say. But we're going to take it back up to Garrett Fertig to make it official here.
All right, boxing fans, after 7 rounds, we go to the judges' scorecards for a decision. Judges score the contest 69-64, 67-66, and 68-65. For your winner, by unanimous decision, Steve 2-Pound Forbes.
And there we have Steve Forbes getting his first win in quite a while. His last 6 fights before his fight just before this one had been losses. So this is his first win in a while.
Yeah, it was a good decision. I think those scorecards were all fair. You know, there was one that was really close, but
all right,
they
first of all, I want to tell you,
scores.
this is an honor for me to stand in the ring with a former world champion, especially on a win on his comeback fight. 4.5 years off, you wanted to come back to Portland and bring boxing back to Portland. Everybody needs to know that. Bringing professional boxing back to Portland. It's all due to Steve 2-Pound Forbes and his lovely lady, Christina Lusman. Now, I knew in the last event that you were probably going to come out of retirement and fight, and I was pretty excited to see it. You didn't disappoint, my friend. It was an honor to watch you. I want to know what you thought going into this fight.
Well, I knew, you know, I've been off 4.5 years, and you know, I'm an older guy, and but I got a lot of experience. I never really took any beatings in my career, so I felt like no better place than to come back to Oregon, where legends are from. So this is where I'm at. This is where I'm from, and I feel like our state has been overlooked so long in combat sports, in any sport, and we may be small, but we're mighty, and I want to show that. You know, each fight will get better, each opponent will get better, each fight I'll be in better conditioning. But I want to thank you all for coming out and supporting local boxing and watching some of these stars make their way up, like Victor Morales, outstanding performance. And you know, I'm a promoter also, but you know, it's great to fight alongside these these up and coming guys.
Now, I just want to clarify something. You said you're a little older. You're not older, my friend. When we get older, we get seasoned.
Right. That's right. And again, we're going to come back here August 3rd. We're going to keep bringing different looks. I don't think Oregon has seen it's been a long time that you guys ever seen a female world champion. So we're going to bring a female world champion here to fight in Oregon. We're going to mix it up a bit. We're going to bring some people from different places and also build up our guys right here in the state.
All right, boxing fans, I want to hear it one time for Steve 2-Pound Forbes. Now we have Fighter's Voice, hosted by Don McGuire. He's going to give a Fighter of the Night bonus. Don does a podcast, among other things. He was a photographer for Bellator, for UFC, for Invicta. You've probably seen a million of his pictures, but he does a podcast out of Missouri. It's all over. And he's going to give a bonus to the Fighter of the Night. So I'll take it away, Don. It's all you.
Thank you, Garrett. You know, first of all, Steve, love you, brother, man. Tremendous fight. Thank you for the honor to come up here. You know, Jamie Huey, tremendous, man. You know, we've been doing this show for quite a while now, and we felt that it was prevalent to come here and give back to the sport like these young fighters and Steve is doing here in the Oregon area. You know, I'm going to toss the mic to Barry Frost and let him go ahead and announce who we're going to give the money to.
Yeah, we had a young man tonight, Victor Morales Jr. He put it down tonight. So Victor, where you at, buddy?
Victor Morales, you still in the house? You got a fight of the night, son.
It's right there.
I put a little pressure on this young man last night. I told him he had to sway me, and he definitely did. He put on a heck of a performance. You guys did awesome, and you had a heck of an opponent, a game opponent. So much respect to Gallardo as well. But you, my man, you were the winner, fighter of the night. Much appreciated, buddy.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You know, I got to tell you, you're a young man, and I've been in this business a long time. You look like a seasoned veteran in here tonight. You know, the tremendous ability that you had. We sat down and we had an interview last night. You truly won me over in that aspect, but you came in here tonight and you proved that you had the heart to become a champion. Young man, congratulations. You're on your way to being a champion. The aspect that your camp is bringing, keep it up, man. We're very proud of you. From the fighter's voice, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I just want to say thank you for each and every one of you that made it out. We appreciate your support, and we hope to see you here August 3rd. Thank you.
That about wraps it up for 2-Pound Sports and Entertainment Fight Night 3. We had 3 stoppages and 2 decision wins. We didn't really learn too much new here from any of the fighters, Karen, but what we did learn is that the Pacific Northwest loves their boxing.
Yeah, and we saw some truly top-level talent tonight, and that can't be overlooked. Especially, you know, Victor Morales Jr. That was some really impressive skill sets that he showed there tonight. And, you know, again, I was just impressed that he showed different looks and progress within the same fight. You don't see that a lot in modern boxing, and that was really great to see. And, of course, phenomenal to see Steve Forbes return to the ring and get a decision win against a very, very tough game and active opponent in Tavorus Teague.
Well, if one thing is clear, it's that the future of boxing in the Pacific Northwest is very bright. So we'd like to thank everybody who came out tonight to support 2-Pound Sports and Entertainment. Karen, an absolute pleasure to call the fights with you tonight.
My pleasure.
And if you guys wouldn't mind, please visit the 2-Pound Sports and Entertainment Facebook page and Instagram page, and we will see you August 3rd.
This show is presented by 2-Pound Sports and Entertainment.